Today, we are breaking down the entire 2025 NFL draft class for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am joined by Urinating Tree. Say hello to the people, and we'll jump right into the first round.
What's up, man? How you doing today?
Dude, it's a great day. It's a great day. I appreciate to have you on. Obviously, we got to talk a couple of years ago. Shout out to David Miller. You guys can go find him on X, and then he also has some YouTube stuff. But let's jump right into Derrick Harmon. There were a couple guys on the board that I was a big fan of at the point. Derrick Harmon makes a ton of sense. I mean, you look at the build, you look at the age. I was a huge fan of him back all the way at Michigan State. So I know he's going to be good. I was hoping, because I'm just a diehard Amari and Hampton fan, for that, I think that the next pick will be able to assuage my feelings a little bit. But we got a great player. Unfortunately, obviously, something tragic happened that night. Like, it's great to know that Derrick Harmon said he got drafted to his mom, but it's just going to be someone who's going to be a great locker room presence, super young, super talented. What were your thoughts on the pick? Was there anybody who you ended up wanting more than Derrick Harmon at that point?
My main thing is I'm just glad they didn't reach for a quarterback. That was my fear that was going to happen. I was thinking it was either going to be Shedeur because he fell. There was a lot of smoke before the draft about, Shedeur visited Pittsburgh. Tomlin was pumping him up. It may have been smoke and mirrors, but I mean, this is the pick that was based out of need. Cam Hayward's in his late 30s. You have questions about TJ, even though he's an edge. Larry Ogunjobi's gone. And you had also, I'm trying to think of.
Then you got Keanu there.
DeMarvin Leal. You have him like he had been dealing with injuries last year. So you roll him and Benton, you should be good with your 3-4 or even a 4-3 if you use him as an end. I mean, you have that sort of stuff as well. More or less, the question I have with this pick, it's happened later with the George Pickens trade. I'm surprised they didn't pick wide receiver or consider a wide receiver here at this rate. I would have probably considered Emeka Egbuka if he were available because he fits a different style than, say, a Pickens or a DK. Right. But I would say you did have Luther Burton and Matthew Golden still on the board. I mean, I don't know if they would have been complimenting DK. But it's just the question of you have another whole wide receiver too, which has not been addressed, unfortunately. But I don't have a problem with the pick. I think he'll be solid. So I completely understand it's the best player available. So you take it from there.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're getting somebody who's a high character guy, young, definitely a need. How many more years can Cam Hayward play like Cam Hayward? We've been so successful with having a consistent defense, especially in the trenches, that it would be criminal to see what we did with our offensive line, which was ignore it until we had to address it. And hopefully we learned our lesson there and we're addressing the defensive interior earlier, which we've done a good job replacing guys with Keanu Benton and such. But well said. The next pick, technically let's talk about DK, because I mean, that is kind of our second round pick. With George Pickens gone is what it is. I'm at the point where I trust if our organization gets rid of a nutcase at a certain point. But DK gets added on, big contract, seems expensive in the moment. I always just think back to every single time I see like Devontae Smith get 25 a year. And I'm like, interesting. Like at that moment, it's like, okay. But then now you look back and it's like, he's in the middle of his contract. It's like, man, that's a damn good deal. So what were your thoughts on the whole entire DK situation?
I was actually surprised they made the jump for it. I know they've been looking for an elite wide receiver for a while. Brandon Ayuk, the situation obviously happened there. Didn't work out. They tried for Christian Kirk, but he got injured. Mike Williams, he had like one big catch against Washington. Didn't really work out, though. So this is their addressing their situation. Okay, we have a guy. He's kind of unhappy in Seattle. He got passed up by JSN. Big home run threat, but he's prone to crash outs. Questionable route running, insane talent, chiseled from marble. And you're looking at him, it's like, this is George Pickens. So it's obvious they're not going to have two of the same type of receiver on the roster because you don't have a short and a mid-range game. You'd probably be relying on Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson if he's, God forbid, he stays healthy. So I would believe that more or less it's a gamble, but it's a gamble the Steelers feel like they have to make. But now the question is, who's throwing to him? The whole Aaron Rodgers saga is coming in. And I don't think he's going to do well because he doesn't have the mobility anymore just because of that torn Achilles. We saw it last year. But, I mean, if the Steelers feel like that's the way to go, then so be it. If it's Mason Rudolph, you kind of have this year sort of like a tank year. I mean, for the Steelers, it's a tank year. I mean, next year's quarterback class is really good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it's in Pittsburgh. by the way.
Yes.
So that's
Mhm.
going to be super exciting as well. That's what I was hoping for Aaron Rodgers not to be a Steeler, just because I think he's our best shot of winning games at the
Yeah,
moment.
but
I would debate
do
Will
you see this
Howard.
team winning a Super Bowl though? That's the question.
Bingo.
I
So it's
I
like, how many more years of mediocrity are we going to just deal with just to be semi-competitive?
But the problem is
So,
it's not our call, it's Tomlin's call. Tomlin wants
right.
Rodgers. You're gonna do everything they can to get Rodgers.
Yep.
And I mean,
Eh,
as I said, as I said, I didn't think Rodgers did that well last year. I know everyone
right.
says it's the New York Jets, but it's
Mm,
still it's you saw a lot of red flags, especially with that torn Achilles. I mean,
yep.
it's a young man's game. We saw what happened with Kirk Cousins last year with that torn Achilles. He couldn't make any plays to his left hand side because
Right.
that Achilles was not fully healed.
Mm,
And even first game, everything that came out of a pistol was a run.
right.
Single back or shotgun, pass.
Mm,
It got too predictable. And
yeah.
that's why they had to cut ties and go with Michael Penix and keep Cousins as a backup.
What's funny is that Cousins was also another name mentioned to the Steelers. So, like,
No,
it's
they
on
weren't
brand.
going to do it. There's too
I
much
know.
money owed to them.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation nonetheless. And the DK situation, seeing the Steelers actually have the cojones to make a big move, it gave me some excitement because it's like, finally, let's not be complacent. But in contrast, it did make me worried for that first round pick. I'm like, are they just going
Mhm.
to like get a little bit too ballsy and say, well, we're just going to go balls to the wall and then go after a quarterback early just because we need to make the big moves or else we're stuck in the mud. I'm glad they didn't. And
Mhm.
I
Same here.
think, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to pay DK or George. I think
Yep.
they evaluated the situation, thought that, especially with all the factors included, DK was going to be the more reliable option for the long run.
Yep.
And if he does work, because I think DK is more of a unicorn build, then it's kind of worth the risk. So
Yep.
praying that it ends up working out. We finally made a move to get somebody who could be an enforcer down the field. I love the blocking too. He is built to be a Steeler, big physical, great blocker, good
Oh, yeah.
speed. But next pick, Kaleb Johnson.
Mm.
This guy fits Art scheme to a T. He also already looks good in black and gold. So
Oh,
I
yeah. He's
love that
based
as
out of
well.
Iowa.
I know he's right
I
about
was built in the Steeler mold. Bad
literally.
offenses, great defenses, pound the rock,
Yep.
pound the trenches. That's just the Steeler way.
So
You
good.
knew they were drafting a running back the moment Najee was gone. I mean,
Right.
I never liked the Najee pick. Wasn't because of Najee, but who was
Mm,
blocking for him.
right.
And it never really got solved. I hope Najee does well, but it's just it felt like it was kind of a waste. So you're
Oh yeah.
hoping at this point, second, third round pick, good running backs can pop out of there. It's
Mm.
kind of that same old, not really a power back like a Najee, but I think he can be a really nice complement to someone like a Jalen Moore.
Oh yeah. I mean, Kaleb Johnson as well. What I love the most about him, because I was actually a bit lower on him than the consensus, but the thing I love the most about him is his age. But conversely, he's young and has proven to have a huge bell cow rep set. Like his past year, he carried the rock a ton of times. So he was a focal point of an offense, but he still has a ton of tread left on his tires because he didn't have it years before. So I
Mhm.
love that. It's a weird situation. A lot of times when you see a bell cow back in college, they've had 1,000 plus carries. And it's like, like how many more years do I have out of you? Caleb's young. Caleb has only had, I believe, 500 touches or maybe a little bit over on its entire career. And we get him into a system that works really good for him. I'm game. So super excited about that. This next pick ruffled some feathers. I don't know. I don't know if it ruffled yours, but Jack Sawyer, 123. Before I give my thoughts on it, I'm curious what your thoughts are because I want an unadulterated experience hearing what you think of Jack Sawyer.
It's a day three pick, so you can't really look that much into it. The question is, what does this mean for TJ?
Mm,
Because that's the question I'm looking for. I'm considering.
yeah,
He's got 1 year left in his deal. There's apparently an impasse in the contract negotiations. Is this going to be the backup replacement, and you put in Herbig as your
yeah.
like left side
Mhm.
edge, or is this just a situation where okay, you just thought it was the best player available? Because I mean, Jack
Right.
Sawyer, a lot of people were just pumping him up because really great prospect out of high school, national championship, Ohio State team had the big fumble recovery against
Mhm.
Texas. And it's sort of like kind of a gamble, but it's an interesting gamble. I'm just worried about the long term ramifications.
I know. It's at that point of the draft where it's not a pure luxury pick. It's not like 5th or 6th round where it's like, yeah, we're just getting pure depth. 4th round picks, you have the hope of them being able to take noticeable reps in the future. I mean, that's where like Josh Sweat was drafted, if not mistaken. Like the fourth round is where you end up taking your starters in 2 to 3 years if you really do it correctly. And the thing I love the most about Jack Sawyer, though, is the fact that he is such a good leader in the locker room. Again, another guy who has that Pittsburgh mentality. He's getting all pissed off at seeing the Michigan flag being planted on the field. Like I love players who are just getting emotional about that. And that is what you need in the AFC North. Jack Sawyer is just such a high floor player, and I think he's more of an early down defender anyways. I wonder if it's because of the TJ Watt situation that they want to use Herbig and Sawyer in almost a mismatched situation where, Herbig obviously more of a pass rushing specialist, Sawyer going to be more of that early down specialist, having that nice little rotation there rather than relying on the all-encompassing TJ Watt. Hoping that's not the case. Because
I hope so too. But I mean, as I said, early 30s, that's when edge rushers start to kind of taper off. I mean, everyone was criticizing TJ last year, but he was hurt. It was one of those things where he wasn't at full strength. It was very obvious. He was dealing with probably a grade 2 ankle sprain, especially with the way he's doing things. And that takes some time to recover. You're not going to get the explosiveness until about a month or two later on.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. I mean, health is so crucial and people just like to look right past it. It's crucial. And I think with all that involved, I really like the Jack Sawyer pick. Not because I thought it was the best value in human history, but I thought it was just really, really solid risk management. And it's a good player, even if TJ Watt works out and we end up keeping him for another 3-4 years and Jack Sawyer rides the bench and he's like more of a situational guy. First off, 4th round pick, like you said, don't think too much of it. Second off, you have someone who's going to be really good in the locker room. And then third, injuries occur. You're not worried on the second down of getting absolutely shellacked with a 230-pound edge rusher on the end. You have someone who's an absolute force. And now it's like you have more of that luxury where maybe you can sign a pass rusher who's not as good as a run stuffer, who's probably sitting out there on free agency because not very much utility on a 53. So I love it. I mean, I personally gave this group pick way higher than pretty much most people. You see my grade right there. Nobody really seemed to have a really very high grade on the Steelers draft. Every single pick, and this happens every year, I'm like a little bit let down at the moment because maybe there's another player I wanted more. But the more I just sit on it, it's like this makes sense. And us also passing on QB in first round made me a lot happier. But this was another one. I just thank God. The 5th round really got people worked up for some reason, in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of Yahya Black. I ended up seeing him in person. Did you go to Mobile?
I did not know.
Oh, dude, have you ever been to the Senior Bowl?
I have not.
Brother, you need to make some time.
Never had a chance.
It is so fun. It is so fun. If you get to make the chance, do it. And I say that for everybody because they actually are pretty liberal when it comes to giving out passes for media. And you could also go as a fan. But one of the best weeks, in my opinion, in the entire year. But Yahya Black is someone who has 35-inch arms. He's a pure nose tackle. The thing I love about this, we don't have to put Keanu Benton at pure nose tackle all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Benton's more of a 3-tech, I feel like.
Right, exactly. And like this guy's playing some nose reps, which to be fair, Keanu back in, I think it was 2022 or 2021, was playing nose quite a bit for Wisconsin. It makes sense. Yeah. But he's not built to be an NFL nose. Yahya is like 340 pounds with 35-inch arms. This guy's built to plug the middle. So some people didn't like it. I understand in the moment. For me, I was a big supporter of it. What were your thoughts on the pick? Maybe there was somebody else that you were looking at there.
I'm not really looking at anything there because more or less in the day 3, it's more or less, okay, what do you feel is the best fit available? Who do you think has the most upside? It's more or less where your scouts are feeling is the best player available at that point. So I feel like with Yahya Black, it's, as I said, it's a 3-4. So the Steelers love their 3-4. They love their pure nose. Casey Hampton eating up space in the middle. I don't know if that's really going to be a style these days, but I think it's going to be more of like a goal line specialist. I think he'll be somebody who's going to be plugged in like crucial, like 4th and short. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to stop the tush push, but I mean, the Eagles were tush pushing their way all over us last year. Maybe they saw that and thought, okay, we need a big boy in the trenches who can play pure nose instead of the 3-techs like Larry Njoku, great player, 3-tech. Keanu Benton, great player, 3-tech. Same as Louder, Milk, and Leal. They're more 3-techs than real nose tackles. So I feel like they're trying to fill a sort of an organizational gap that was really exposed in the latter part of last year.
And again, I'll say this just as Kaleb Johnson looks good in black and gold. I'll just say it there. Like, just that was my dream pick for 164 in that moment. I was really hoping for, funnily enough, Will Howard or Yahya Black, because I do like having a dedicated early or short distance nose tackle that, again, 35-inch arms as well. Like, talk about a very unique profile. You don't see many 340 pounders with 35-inch arms. It's going to be intriguing to see if it works. But I mean, even in Mobile, he was a little bit of a headache for the people who were trying to block him. So I really do hope this ends up being one of those, like, Steelers did it again on day 3. But next, we got Will Howard at 185. And I know I'm extremely high on Will Howard compared to the consensus. I'm not saying I'm correct. I'm hoping I am. Obviously, you're hoping I am too. But
exactly.
I mean, this is somebody who went and showed his best moments in the biggest moments. And he loves Pittsburgh. And he was literally saying, I want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. All the video clips, like, it just makes me want him to be my starting quarterback. And whether he's good or bad, he's good. Great. We got our quarterback in the 6th round. Hallelujah. He's not. We have the draft next year. On top of that, hopefully he's good enough to be a backup, and backups are expensive now. So what were your thoughts on 185? I mean, obviously we're happy it wasn't at 21, but was Will Howard like one of the guys that you were kind of hoping for us?
Like, I wasn't really crazy about many of the quarterbacks in this class. There were more projects. There are like guys who could be good. Like, I think Shedeur could be good. I think Cam could be good, but it's just guys that are going to need some time. I mean, Will Howard, it's a lottery ticket. That's the best way to really say it. You did need a young quarterback. He'll compete with Skylar Thompson in camp. I think he'll beat him. I mean, Will Howard was solid in college, but the college to the NFL transition is very tough. So once again, if it works out, great. You have your starting quarterback for a bit. If not, whatever. It's a 6th round pick. It's not a big deal.
And they're cheap. That's like the biggest thing. I mean, of course, the NFL salary cap keeps jumping up and up. So how valuable is that? I don't know. But it's still, I mean, money's money, man. Especially when contracts keep going up. It's nice not to have to put $5 to $10 million on your backup. Next, Carson Bruner, linebacker to Washington. I'm going to be honest. I did not watch him enough before. I've been watching a lot of Washington players, obviously, for the coming up 2026 draft. This guy keeps popping off. Like, he just consistently is doing the right thing on tape. And I know it's kind of a nepo pick. All right. I think what's dad is one of our scouts.
That was Mark Bruner, former tight end for the Steelers back in the 90s. Steelers love their bloodline picks. Love them.
Oh, yeah. So it's just like, when I end up seeing that, I know that the initial thought from everybody was just pure nepo pick. I think that it actually lines up talent-wise as well. What were your thoughts on it?
As odd as it sounds, like, most of their nepo picks have actually worked out. Joey Porter Jr., I mean, I'm not he has issues with, like, taking too many penalties, but he's been all right for a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah.
Connor Hayward's been a solid backup tight end for a 6th rounder. Nick Herbig.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
as I said, like, if you're as good as you say about Bruner, if you can fill a role as a backup linebacker besides Mark Robinson, I think you're in decent shape. Absolutely. 7th rounder, the expectations aren't high. You're more or less just competing for a spot in camp, play special teams, be a backup, do a job when needed. That's pretty much all 7th round pick is really expected to do.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's just at that point, especially because, like, you got those bloodlines there. And also, I think Carson's going to be a pretty damn solid special teamer. You're just having a really high floor 7th round pick. And I love being able to take some shots on some high ceiling guys there, but also the high floor guys, because you do need to fill in the ranks of the less desirable positions and also that practice squad. But last but not least, Dante Kent, cornerback out of Central Michigan. I'm going to be honest, I did not watch Dante Kent. But I'm not going to crap on a team for taking a developmental corner in the 7th round, probably a special teamer. What were your thoughts on it?
Same thing. It's a 7th round pick. You may as well take a developmental corner, stash him on the practice squad for a year or two.
Yeah.
I mean, more or less, Corey Trice has shown promise, but he's hurt most of the time. Yeah. So they're probably hedging their bets there. And as I said, with secondary, you can never have enough depth because with corners, they can come and go in a flash. The Steelers were playing Cam Sutton in a primary role last year. You can't have that happen again. So that's what they're probably hedging their bets on. It's a little lottery ticket, maybe one of those $2 scratch offs once in a full million. Hey,
Right.
it's a $10,000 bonus. Who knows?
There you go. I love the analogies, man. But if you're when you're sitting at the end of the draft before UDFA is starting to be announced, what was maybe the player or the position that you were really hoping for us to draft that maybe we ignored? I know we talked about wide receiver. Was there something else as well?
I would say probably wide receiver for the most part.
Yeah.
Mostly because you have that huge hole. You were wondering about George Pickens, but with the stuff coming out about they tried to trade him at the draft, nobody really wanted him. So I think that Cincinnati game pretty much ran him out of town. He's talking smack to the media, having confidence with there. You have no catches and have a terrible route on that Russell Wilson pass. I'm like, okay, you're done. Get out. That's pretty much what I thought. And DK pretty much confirmed he was gone. So the Steelers, I think, are more or less are trying to prepare for next year. You have a bunch of comp picks, I think 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you have the Dallas third. So you could always trade up for a quarterback if somebody falls. But it more or less depends on what happens with Aaron Rodgers. Like, is he going to come here? Is he not? I figured he would have made a decision by now. It's been 2 months. Come on, man. Just retire and just get it over with. I know you want to. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. For me, another position I was kind of hoping we could take a swing at, even in like the 7th, would have been offensive line, like somewhere. I still think we're developing it, especially the tackles. And there's Holland Pierce. So I'm like,
I mean, tackle and guard because, James Daniels has become a free agent. You're probably putting McCormick in there. And tackles, you do have huge question marks. Valtano was injured most of the time. Broderick Jones has just been a huge disappointment, which I'm bummed about. I love the pick at the time, but he just has not converted. Hopefully going back to left tackle will help him out. But once again, I don't know.
What's up with our organization having this fetish to put left tackles at right? I'm like, can we just draft a right tackle, brother? Like,
no, or right at left with Dan Moore. You do. Our offensive line coach is the guy who got fired by Matt Rule with the Panthers. So,
yeah. Oh my. Well, we did end up actually doing pretty damn solid in UDFA as well. Of course, not every single UDFA is going to be great, but there are a couple names for me that stood out, and I'm curious if some other guys besides what I'm talking about stood out to you. And those two players are Sebastian Castro, which I'm going to be honest, I had Sebastian Castro for a notable amount of the year in my top 32, ended up being into the top 100. But of course, he's older. He's going to be 25 years old. But one of the smartest, most physical, again, black and gold, and just overall 10-inch hands. Like, he was a very polished player. I'm surprised he went undrafted. I understand nickelback, especially at that size, limited athleticism, I understand. But to go UDFA, I legitimately think Sebastian Castro could start as the nickel on our team. And we might do it back-to-back years with Beanie Bishop as a UDFA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Beanie was a UDFA.
Yeah,
he actually was pretty solid for a UDFA.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we can now actually have two legitimate fringe, two starting caliber nickelbacks from our back-to-back UDFA classes. The last but not least, though, Rock Taylor. We didn't address wide receiver in the class, but I got to see Rock Taylor. He was, I think, a top 40 receiver for me coming into the year from summer scouting. And he was really fun to watch. He's a little bit more that X build, like wide receiver 4 to, technically you can drop it all the way down to 7. But he has a good build. He's physical. I got to see him in person at the Frisco Bowl as well. And he's just a very reliable backup receiver. And it's like the perfect player to encapsulate kind of what the Steelers have done in the past. I know like there was Deion Kane. Deion Kane's the guy who I always think back to as kind of the role for what I think Rock Taylor should be for the Steelers. Will he be a camp body or will he ascend to something more? I don't know.
Who knows?
It's like, who knows? But our receiving core is not too bueno at the moment. So I do think that there is a chance with the lack of quantity there that we might have actually gotten somebody who could end up contributing. But were there any other players in the mix that ended up, standing out to you, or have you heard anything about some other players?
I know he's probably not going to make the roster, but Ben Saul's out of Pitt. Pitt. But he was reliable in college. He'll probably be a practice squad guy, somebody they'll call up if Boswell gets injured. But that would be my go-to. He's reliable leg, didn't miss an extra point in college, and more or less is just a guy who can kick it pretty far. He's kicked a couple 50-plus yarders, so he does have the NFL leg. It's, as I said, more or less just using him for reps and just for film.
Yeah, No, absolutely. And especially, we were talking about this before, if the NFL starts implementing a little bit more of like an emergency kicker, emergency punter situation, it's always good to have those reliable options on your team if they can end up being like pretty much free bodies. But regardless, I mean, overall, what would you think of the class? Was there like a particular spot where you were wishing for a different player? And if you could like kind of snatch and swap a player for someone who you wanted to drop in, what would that kind of be?
It's hard to tell because your second round pick is DK Metcalf, so you have to
True.
kind of consider that.
Yeah, there's a
I
big
mean,
big one.
in terms of what they did, I don't have any complaints about who they selected because,
Right.
I mean, you did fill needs at day around 1 and 3, and then
Yep.
your day 3 picks are more or less just best player available or best scheme fit.
Right.
So you can't really gauge it. And I feel like the Steelers accomplished what they needed to accomplish. They didn't reach for anybody, thank the Lord.
Yep.
So I would give it a pretty like a B or a B plus right now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's more or less, I don't like to really look too hard into drafts
Sure.
unless there's something egregious,
Right.
which is more or less with quarterback. But otherwise, I mean, I think they did a solid job for what it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, the reason I gave it the A plus is because of the fact that I had Will Howard as a top 100 player, someone who I do see as the QB2, but someone who I would just hope could end up winning out to be a QB1. Like there's a lot of optimism there. When it comes to Yahya, another player who I had top 100 or maybe top 115. Jack Sawyer, same category. Kaleb Johnson, like a great fit. And then, I mean, continuing to fall in love with Carson Bruner. Like I just ended up really liking what we did, and then add Sebastian Castro on top. It just was like everything ended up coming together outside of the offensive line because I ended up seeing Cam Williams slipping. Like if I were to, drop like a player into someplace else, like maybe, I mean, honestly, I just really love what we did. Like, I really do love what we did. It's hard to be able to say like probably Dante Kent for Holland Pierce, but at that point, there are some players who are saying I'd rather go to UDFA and choose where I go rather
Yeah.
than become a 7th round pick. So maybe
Mhm.
that was the situation there. I highly doubt that, 6'8", 340, solid movement skills would slip out of the draft without that reason. But that's the video. Feel
Mhm.
free to be able to go give yourself one last shout, my friend. It was great having you on.
Absolutely, man. Well, otherwise, I mean, I'm looking forward to the summertime, relaxing. I've got hockey playoffs on too. So, I mean, just keeping busy. I'm glad you brought me on, Hail Mary, man. Good to see you again, brother.
Thank you. Yes, thank you guys all for watching as well, and we'll see you later.